Hello, and welcome to On Point. I'm Dominique Isabeau. Los Angeles is a city full of art exhibits, museums, and is home to many well-known artists. But some of the most popular art in LA can be found on the streets. Graffiti, murals, stickers, and stenciling. As the Tate Museum in London explains, street art is related to graffiti art, and that it is created in public locations. It's usually unsanctioned, but it covers a wider range of media and is more connected with graphic design. Gustavo Fuentes is a Los Angeles-based tape artist. He shows us a different type of street art.
My name is Gustavo Fuentes, also known as Flëkz. That is my tagger / Instagram name, and yeah, I'm a tape artist. I work based off sacred geometry where there has to completely always be balance, but also I'm always trying to change it up and do something different. My work is very much line work with tape, but it's hard to explain. Created 2 murals for the location. The materials are just tape and acrylic. It took me 4 days to make it. I was born in El Salvador, and then after 2, I came to these States, and then lived here in Los Angeles for my whole life, basically, at this point. There's a piece that I work with Defer. He's from LA, actually from the Valley. He graduated from CSUN. Funny thing is, I went to CSUN as well. So it was kind of like a cool CSUN collab that we did. And Defer is an incredible artist. You know, he's world-renowned, huge inspiration, and just a huge opportunity to work with him. And I'm very grateful to have that piece now. So I got into street art when I was in 8th grade, and I was inspired by this tagger named Sakor, which I'm still friends with. And basically from there I got into street art, and it kind of just took over my life without realizing. And then I got inspired by Banksy and his amazing stencils there. I started creating my own style stencils, and then I realized that I could use those stencils and make them out of tape, and that's how I kind of came up with the idea of working with tape as my main medium. But it's been like more than 10 years, which is nuts, and it's been amazing. It's been an amazing ride. You know, as an artist, it's hard to really see yourself like, well, for me, it's hard for me to see myself as a professional artist, even though I know I am. I make a living off my art, you know? And I think in general, even just not even making money off your art, as long as like you have recognition and you work hard for it and that's what you do, like you're a professional artist. From the beginning, you know, first I figure out what type of surface I'm gonna work on, usually wooden panel and the size. And then once I've obtained the wooden panel, I'll go ahead and prime it, then I'll paint over it, and then I'll create my tape design, and then I'll paint over that, and I'll remove the tape, and then that's kind of the finished process. It sounds very simple, but it's not. A lot more work goes into it. And now I've been getting in the whole process of creating several layers over my work, so it takes a lot more time than it used to. One thing that I recommend as an artist is knowing your worth. You know, as an artist, it's really hard not to undervalue, like a lot of artists still tend to undervalue their work, and you shouldn't think that way. You should always like try selling yourself for higher, and whatever you're able to sell your piece at, keep it at that pricing or go higher, never below. It's best to just wait and just let it happen. I think that's one of the biggest thing I wish someone told me, is how to price your art. You know, a lot of people don't tell you that, especially in like when I went to school. No one told me like, hey, this is how you price your work, like, or how to like create a business out of it. Like, no one tells you that. Like, do your research and just never undervalue yourself. Like, you know what you're worth, just do it. I think the art community is really beautiful. You know, there's bad things and good things, but most of the time people are really good. You know, I'm very fortunate, well, to have like a lot of support, and that's why I'm able to collaborate with a bunch of different artists. If it wasn't for that, it's hard for people to collaborate with different artists or communicate with different people. People just see you by your numbers of how many followers you have now, which is just really sucks, you know?
Today on the show, we hear from another LA street artist. He's with On Point's Jessica Harper.
Thank you, Dominique. And today joining us is Defer. and he is a street art. Would you consider a muralist?
I just like saying artist because
Just an
I don't
artist?
think I'm contained. You know what I mean? Like I don't do specifically. I try to like diversify my practice, I should say.
Okay. Yeah. So, first of all, tell me about KS2 and KGB. What do they mean to you?
2S and KGB. Those were two of my first graffiti crews that I belonged to. So they were they're very old crews, and it started in like the pioneering days in the 80s with graffiti.
How was the 80s with graffiti art?
Well, the thing with it was very scattered. It isn't like it is now where there's a lot of graffiti everywhere. It was more very new to Los Angeles at the time because because it came from New York actually. Some of the graffiti, the wild style and stuff like that. So we didn't have internet and all that stuff back then, so it was more like you saw it on a music video or on a movie, so you only caught a glimpse of it. Now you have social media where you could just pull up stuff from anywhere.
Yeah.
So if someone went to New York and they had a photo album, that was like a treasure.
Right.
Yeah.
So, would you consider what you do an art protest?
I think in the beginning it was very esoteric, and you kind of like now everybody has like Instagram and whatever, all these different platforms to share their artwork. But back then you kind of did it and you just left.
Right.
And you were more like I guess you weren't doing it for any kind of recognition from the general public or trying to, now people use like maybe, even street art or whatever as a segue to a career, right?
Right. Right.
I've seen several people do that.
And yours is a fusion. You use Japanese art and also street art. How do you fuse the two? How do you consider that?
I would say it's kind of changed more lately because when I first started, I would use some imagery that was kind of like the maybe traditional Japanese, but more like the animals, like they draw tigers and dragons and stuff like that. So I used to use that and as figurative characters, and then have my my typography and different kind of designs in the background.
Right.
So I'll use it, but
how many layers would you put on top then?
It varies because I think every piece of mine kind of varies, but I always do more than three layers for sure.
Right.
But then again, some pieces are basically one stroke too, where it's all typography. So I have different gears to my practice.
So did you take art classes?
Yeah, I did. I was at CSUN. I took art classes at Santa Monica College and at CSUN. So it's kind of crazy. I took, just getting through my generals was hard, right? All the English and science and, the general courses. So art classes, were electives, but they were easy for me because I did art, when I was a kid and stuff like that. So I had a teacher said, hey, you're pretty good at this. You want to be in a show. That was like my first art show that I did.
That's how you got your kick in. Okay.
Yes. So I was in his class and he goes, hey, I'm having this show and I like your style. So I think he put two of us students in there. It was in Culver City. It was called LA Contemporary Gallery. And that was 2007 or something. And yeah, I believe 2007. I have to look at the flyers or whatever, but yeah, so I kind of got involved that way.
So I heard that your mom was an influence for you as far as getting into the art field also. How was, during World War II and, her being Japanese American, how did she influence you? How was that?
Well, I think what she did was a protest because she was part of this movement called Redress for Reparations.
Right. And
they contested the internment. They protested and, they would have marches. She helped. She was one of the one of the first members there and active members. And then they actually won a settlement with the government to get, I think each family member, 20,000 or something. And that was, yeah. So, just being around that movement, I was around people that were asking me, we should paint something. And I've painted a couple things for them, and it just gave me a little more awareness and consciousness what was going on. And then especially I grew up in Boyle Heights, so there was a lot of socio-political murals on the wall.
Okay.
You know, the LA streetscapers and you know, in the 80s it was, you know, more, you saw more political figures on the wall, you know, like, you know, you would say see Zapata, you would see different cultural, socioeconomic messages. If you look at like the streetscapers, East LA streetscapers, Willie Heron, there's Raul Yepes. There was a whole movement of Chicano artists, and that was very, very prevalent in the neighborhood I grew up in.
Do you consider these artists still popular?
Still popular?
Yeah. I mean, because a couple of the names sound familiar still, you know? I mean, they're still around.
Yeah. I mean, to me, they're legends, right? I mean, but it's hard to say with now, in the here and now, all the kids now, they're just on Instagram and everything, whatever's popular, and there's so much. I think people don't cherish history as much as they used to.
Right.
Because you know, I think we're inundated with so much information, right? That it's like everybody's worrying about what's next. You know, like, oh, what's the next thing you're gonna do? What's this? What's this?
And I was gonna ask that, like, where do you see this evolving to? Like,
what do I see? What involving?
Like your art. Like, for instance, you started, you know, for instance, like the one behind you. How long does a mural last?
Like a mural, it all depends. It all depends because, you know, if you do a mural on a building and someone buys that building, right?
Yeah.
Or that building gets demolished, there goes a mural, right? So that's happened before. So it varies. You can't really say. Every spot's different. You know what I mean? Like if you think about the Sistine Chapel, it's a mural, right? A fresco mural or whatever. You know, not fresco, but it's a mural, and it's going to be entombed there forever.
Right.
Or not forever, but you know, as long as the building is sustained, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the one thing. I mean, it's all at the mercy of what's going on with the particular building that you paint on. You know, it might be a place where they're just like, hey, we're going to protect this forever.
Yeah, that was my next question. Do you feel like this art or any street art or any muralist, does it have a place in a museum? I haven't seen any.
Any muralists that are in museums?
Yeah.
I mean, I would consider murals a part of my practice, but I predominantly do, you know, works that are for galleries and museums.
Okay.
And I like the physicality of murals and the challenge of it. You know what I mean? It's almost like, say, like akin to like, say you go running every morning, you run, you know, I run a mile or something, but then when you run a marathon, it's a whole different thing. You know what I mean? Where it's like, whoa, it's a bigger challenge, correct?
Right.
So I kind of see these things as I like to challenge myself and not limit myself. So there's a different kind of I guess, yeah, you would say just a different challenge in doing a mural. And I have proven that. I've been in museums, galleries. You know, I have some of my work that's housed in the Getty Research Institute.
Oh, you're in the Getty? Which one?
It's a book called the Liber Amicorum.
Okay.
You can Google that, or I could email you a link or something.
Okay.
So it's a Getty Black Book. It's actually a black book that's out, and it's back on resale now. They sold out, you know, earlier this year, and then It's back on restock. And then I just did a video for the Getty Via for the Mesopotamian exhibit they had there. Mesopotamia, I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I did a video for that. I can send you a link to that also. That's on YouTube. And yeah, so I've been in galleries and museums. So I think it is. I mean,
kind of getting in there, huh?
You know what? I can't really speak for everybody because everybody has an individual path, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like some people are just like, oh, all they could do is paintings on canvases. And if you give them a big wall, they're like, oh, I can't do that. It's too much.
Intimidating. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole different process, and it's huge. It's very physical. I mean, I've done huge murals where I have to be on lifts and stuff like that. and it's exhausting. It's a different dynamic.
Right.
You know?
Do you just use spray paint or do you use markers?
I use acrylic. My practice is predominantly acrylic.
Okay, and that lasts longer.
I use light fastness, which is Nova color, and it's made for murals, so it's pretty durable, you know. But
yeah, and I noticed something when I was telling you I was going around Santa Monica looking at murals. I noticed every mural doesn't get tagged by other artists. Do you know if there's a reason for that?
I think the streets are wild, right? Anybody has the liberty of like just doing whatever they want, but I think people that are out there and they see a work of art, they probably have some kind of respect for it. You know what I mean? Some kind of endearment, because, you know, it's like someone, you know, took their time and put effort into it. And you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think maybe, you know, I can't speak for everybody, and I'm not really sure, because for me, it's just speculation, you know?
So as far as the urban generation, what role does art, like this type of art, play?
It's pretty crazy, because I think now with Instagram and these social media platforms, it's very visual, right? You know what I mean? It's, you know, people could jump on their phones and they want to look at something. They look at paintings, they look at art, they look at murals, you know, design, you know? So it's like an era where we have visuals at the palm of our hand, right? You know what I mean? And I've been in corporate meetings too, where I've done murals, and their whole dialogue is this: right now is the most photographed time in human history. You know, because you know, remember before a camera, you had to get the film developed. Now it's a one-stop shop.
Right.
Then it came digital, but then digital, you still had to maybe plug it into a laptop. But then now you have this phone that has a superior camera, and you could be in a nice building, but if it's a white wall, it could be at the dentist's office or wherever, right? You know what I mean? But people like to show, like, hey, look what I'm behind. Look, the visuals behind. I'm here behind this mural, or, you know what I mean? They want something exciting in the mural, in the background, or as the focal point of a picture. You know what I mean?
Are there always like hidden messages or subliminal messages in your murals?
Not really. I mean, just some of it's esoteric. It's hard to read sometimes. And it's, you know, like I tell people, like, oh, I can't read it. Well, you know, it's like some things are made to be mysterious. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, it's supposed to be mysterious. It's supposed to be esoteric. It's supposed to be unique, you know? So therefore, yeah. So, I mean, I'm not really trying to, I got to simplify it so everybody could read it. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, because that's what fine art is. It's a pure expression. You know, when you do a painting, it's an expression. If it's not supposed to, I mean, if you're supposed to honestly express yourself, that's the way I feel. That's my personal thing. And
do you notice that you use like more color, like a certain color more often, or do you just, you know, stick to a certain tone, or?
No, actually, you know what? I use a wider range of colors. I push myself to do more than just monotones. So that's one thing about me. I always challenge myself on my artwork. You know,
because I'm looking at the one behind you. It's different than the ones that, you know, we were presenting. Yeah. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah. So that's partly what I do. I mean, I try to do. I try to expand on my craft, do different things, and you know, just so it's not like it's more fun to evolve. Maybe in the art world, they want you to paint the same thing over and over and over, so you get this distinctive, like, you know, oh, that's a Deffer or whatever, and you know, so you could see it, but I like challenging myself, and I mean, it's a pure expression, and then, you know, at a certain point, I kind of like, you know, I think like someone like Picasso, he changed his style so many times, but I think he really enjoyed the process of making art. You know, he didn't see it as a job. He was
he kept evolving and evolving. Even
I think I'm gonna do some sculpture. You know what I mean? Because he was a pure creative, right? So I think you know, because you see some people, they're like, oh, well, I'm a photographer and that's all I do. You know, I'm just a painter. I'm just gonna paint on canvases. I'm not gonna. This is what I do, and they stick to the same thing. And you know, we all have a choice to do that. But then if I feel like, sometimes I feel like, hey, you know what, I want to take this mural job on, and I'll do that. Or I have just different ideas to do different things. So different challenges,
Right.
And, they may hit or miss, but, at some point, if you're a true creative, you thrive on creating and challenging yourself,
I agree. Yeah. So let's talk about this year for 2021. The NFT community and the Nifty Gateway. What exactly is that?
NFTs are basically these digital assets, where basically they're kind of, I would say, they're still evolving right now, because it's basically pretty new. I think they pretty much launched it this year, but I was asked to do one in 2020, so it was going to be 2 years ago already.
Okay.
But it took me a while to kind of do it, because I honestly didn't understand like how I was going to do it, because it's just like when I talked to the guy, it kind of went over my head a little bit. And so I was like, and then I talked to another friend of mine, and he asked me, hey, have you tried the NFT things? I go, yeah, the people from Nifty. He's like, that's a top platform or whatever. And I go, yeah, they can contact me to do something. So I'm part of historically the first wave of NFT artists.
How many artists are on that panel right now? Do you know?
I'm not too sure. So it's brand new, because I think they pretty much launched this year, right? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Earlier this year.
Yeah.
So
And what else were you involved with this year?
I did a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, I just did a Microsoft Evo commercial.
Oh, nice.
It's like a thing for it was for a platform. So I did a video for that, and then I did a couple paintings and stuff, and then I did something for the LAFC soccer stadium. Yeah, I did a mural there, installation. I also did this piece right here is supposed to go to Shanghai for Beyond the Streets.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me see. What else did I do? I did a project for Hyatt Hotels, the Thompson Hotel. Culture Shifters. So I did a live painting and a video asset also. So yeah.
Yeah, so it kept you busy this year.
Yeah, this is all the past like month and a half, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, for a couple months, I should say. It's been pretty busy.
So, like artwork and murals, they usually, like, considered like money, price. How much does something go for that? Or would you rather do it for free? I mean, would you rather do it for free or?
No, I'd rather get paid. I'd rather get paid, because you know what? I think, there's life. You have to pay for life. You have to have housing. You have to have cars. You have to have, you know what I mean? You have to have necessities, and I think if, there was a lot of times where I did it, like when we're students, we're doing it, we're paying to be students, right? That's the starving student, we're paying to be students. And then, you just don't jump into the art world and start getting paid. You have to pay a lot of dues. You have to be able to do a whole show and have anything sell and get back up and then keep on pushing.
Right off the top of your head, do you know how many art pieces you've done? Can you just think?
Oh man, you know what, I should be keeping count, but part of my thing is I always say the count goes back to zero every time I finish something. You know what I mean? So I don't dwell on things, because some people dwell on, oh yeah, you remember this piece I did, and you remember, like, they'll talk about it and they'll kind of dwell on it, or there was a certain era in someone's life where they're like, yeah, you remember that basketball shot I made in high school, and they stay on that. So part of my thing is to do my thing and keep moving on. So to paint every day to actually enhance my craft, better my craft and whatnot. So
yeah, because I could notice the difference from your art from the past to now.
Yeah.
Like I could see how you evolved over the years.
Yeah. So that's basically what that's my goal, and what I do in terms of.
Is your work copyrighted?
Copyrighted? I mean, they're all original pieces, so they're not like logos or anything. I mean,
So, yeah,
and
you
I
can't
think
really copyright it. Okay.
I think too, and then if someone's gonna buy an original painting, you know what I mean?
There was one piece in particular, though, I wanted to talk about, like the Aztec and the cultural significance, because basically the way murals started was the Aztecs and the Greeks. And I noticed in some of your artwork, you kind of incorporated that. Can you talk about that, or?
I mean, if you look at, you know, obviously at CSUN, you know, I study a lot of art history and history too. So initially I wanted, when I first started studying in Santa Monica, I wanted to, you know, I majored in history and sociology. Yeah, so I was, and then, you know, I did anthropology and stuff like that. So I was kind of fascinated by ancient cultures and stuff like that. So, you know, I believe when you study and you read, it becomes part of your art, right? You kind of study these ancient cultures and you know, you know, there's just mysteries in art too, right? Like the pyramids, how were the pyramids built? You know,
Right.
how were these things built? Did aliens build them? What were these things signifying? You know, some of the messages and some of the encrypted, you know, we could only speculate, you know, we weren't there, and, you know, they didn't have videos or, you know, stuff like this. So,
Right.
you know, we get people like, oh, this is what it means, but they don't really know what it means because they weren't there.
Right.
We could say like, oh, that might mean this, but we don't know for sure.
Exactly.
You know?
Thank you, Defra, for coming on today. He's also known as Alex Kizu, and this is On Point.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Pool party at Jesse's. Can you drive? I'm toasted.
Nope, I'm high. But I can order us a ride.
Okay.
Friendly reminder, don't drive high. If you feel different, you drive different.
Thank you for watching On Point. You can follow us on social media at CSUN On Point. You can hear us on KCSN 88.5 FM on Sunday mornings at 5:30. You can watch us on LA 36 and on Santa Clarita Valley Television. For all of us here at On Point, I'm Dominique Isabeau.